Hello, and welcome to another episode of the Multi-Location Marketing Leader. I'm Erin Martin, and this episode is brought to you by Netsertive, a marketing partner who can help you run better localized marketing programs. Today, our guest is Eric Bauer. He's the Chief Operating Officer at Diesel Barbershop with over 30 locations across the U.S. and growing. Eric, thanks for joining me today.
Thanks for having me. I'm excited to chat with you.
Awesome. So just to dive in and give our audience some background, can you tell me a little bit more about your role at Diesel Barbershop?
Yeah, absolutely. So first, I'm actually a franchisee. So I was one of the first 10 franchisees, got exposed to diesel about 4 years ago and have owned and operated my shop here in Jacksonville, Florida for close to 3.5 years. I've been the chief operating officer for close to 2 years now. So I was asked by the founder to join the corporate side since I had operated a successful shop that was scaling really well and was a bit of the squeaky wheel that was always going to him asking for, you know, more marketing, more operational support, even though, the business from day one was incredibly supportive. Like any emerging brand, they had to learn a few things and make a few missteps before finally providing really the kind of 360-degree support that we feel like we provide today. And so my role is really partnering with franchisees, helping them quickly scale their business and managing, the bulk of the corporate team who is supporting the franchise network.
Nice. And yeah, that combination of the experience at corporate and the ownership level is awesome. I'm curious what you've learned throughout being on both sides now that you've been on the corporate side for 2 years.
Well, I always like to say I fight a lot with myself as a franchisee and the franchisor, but no, it gives me a great perspective. So I try to work out of the shop. I mean, now that it's been open for several years, it truly has become for me semi-absentee, but I still try to most weeks if I'm not traveling, work out of the shop in the back office 2 or 3 days a week. So being able to see the client experience, interacting with staff, those are all things that, traditionally franchisors are a bit removed from unless they're still operating corporate locations. So again, it gives me that frontline visibility to what all of our franchisees are going through.
Yeah, I love that. Is there an example of something, or maybe this was even prior to your time at corporate, where you knew something in the experience or marketing that you really wanted to push on and became the squeaky wheel of that you saw implemented because of your experience?
Well, yeah, all the time. I mean, my staff at my shop come to me with ideas all the time. And I encourage that, right? I'm not a barber, I'm not a cosmetologist. So their experience with diesel is incredibly different than my own. And they know that if they bring me an idea, I'm not necessarily immediately running to our founder and saying, "Hey, this is something we've got to implement," but I'm willing to listen. And if I have conviction that it's something that can continue to move the business forward, we will definitely consider doing that. I also like to use my shop as well as the other corporate locations as test and learns. So if there's a great idea, I'll sometimes call our founder and say, "Hey, any opposition to me testing this here in my shop?" If it's helping with the customer experience or if it's helping franchisees make more money, that's pretty much the criteria to move forward with the new initiative.
Nice. And yeah, what does that kind of this past year look like for you guys in terms of initiatives that you had going and kind of what you stepped into the corporate marketing role and then where you're hoping to take things next year?
Yeah, I mean, so when I came into the role, I mean, looking back over about a year and a half, 2 years ago, we were still, I mean, this category was hit incredibly hard by the pandemic and harder. I mean, obviously all of retail, but, personal services where you are inches away from someone else. There was a lot of apprehension, going back 2020, even parts of 21 to having that close interaction with others. So I think we really looked at last year and a bit into this year as rebuilding, right? Focusing on the core services that we're offering, trying to ensure that we're differentiating our services versus others. And then I know you asked from a marketing perspective, it's, I think people are seeking experiences. I mean, after being locked up for a number of months or for some people even longer. And so that's exactly what Diesel is. What we deliver is unique experiences. From a marketing standpoint, it's just how do we actually articulate what's happening between the four walls of the shop.
I think that's interesting what you said about delivering those experiences and how you translate that online and, use it throughout your marketing. I just saw a Google study that validated that in real life, I think they're calling it IRL, like in real life experiences are seen across the board, like whether it's entertainment, movies, roller coasters, retail, kind of like everything that's physical and in real life is on the rise now because everyone wants to live. And so being able to extend that into your brand is such a big
Well,
critical
and
piece.
we were fortunate because that was already such a big part of the brand, the experiential side of things. And we were fortunate. Now, obviously, we were pretty unfortunate in 2020 when, most of the states we operated, we were forced to shut down for a period of time. But coming out of the pandemic, people were hungry to consume experiences where during the pandemic, you saw the, pendulum swing the other way. And it was all about consuming goods because you were stuck at home with your family and needed something to kill the time. And so we've really benefited from some of those changing dynamics over the past year or two.
Yeah. And how do you guys do that? I'm curious with your brand because you have a very cool brand. I think you guys said that Diesel Barbershop is all about redefining the modern American barbershop, which barbershops have such a rich history in this country. So curious how you guys are making those experiences through your brand and, what have you been going on there?
I mean, we know that most people have had a rough go of it the past few years. And even, the economy now isn't exactly humming the way we all would like it to be. So we
Mhm.
try to create a sanctuary where what I love about Diesel for me is I've been getting haircuts. Next week will be 43 years old. So as a consumer for so many years, not overthinking the
Mm.
category and the experience. And I always viewed it as a necessary evil. It's, gotta go. I'm looking in the mirror. The wife says, hey, it's time to get a haircut, time to get a beard trim. And I think that's how a lot of consumers look at the category. But the reason for that is because the experiences across the category by and large aren't fantastic. So we really our founder Shane Brown did a phenomenal job of really building an experience that spoke to him. So, a lot of our shops are incredibly busy, which means you may have a wait time. So to kill the time, we have arcade games that are free to play. The old school kind of 1970s and 80s style arcade games. We give craft beer. So we encourage our franchisees to partner with local craft breweries. So you're not just offering a Bud Light, but we're, offering beer that comes from typically the franchisees. I know for my shop, I know the founders of the brewery. We built a great relationship. So we show that we're part of the community. And then, we really emphasize hiring well and training well. So we've got staff that can really deliver. It's not just a haircut. I mean, every service we provide is, our most basic service normally takes at least 30 minutes, which the bulk of the industry is, it's all churn and burn. Get someone in the
Yeah.
chair, timer goes off, regardless of where you are in the service, get them out. And we're completely the opposite. We charge a fair price, but we're, on the higher end of the market because to deliver that great experience, you need to be able to take your time. And you can only do that if your pricing matches the value of what you're delivering.
Yeah. And so then I'm curious from again seeing like both the franchisee and the corporate side, what do you tell fellow franchisees now in terms of hiring well and tactics to use and what does your training program look like?
Yeah, I mean, the hiring, listen, this category has been impacted by I guess, the great resignation that you hear about a lot, just like any other. I think where we can win and where we thrive is by offering something different. So I think we do that really well for consumers, but we also try to do it well for staff. And a lot of my operations team and business coaches really they focus on coaching the franchisees on how to hire well. And that's something that's not always easy, especially, in the world of franchising, our franchisees for the most part come from white collar backgrounds, more traditional business experiences where you take for granted that someone's going to come in and, they're going to meet your qualifications and they're going to come in and they're going to give you their 100% right out of the gate. And I think for us, there's a whole, just like any other category, there's a whole bell curve of not just technical skill sets of barbers and cosmetologists, but also how good they are with customer service, how well they connect with others. And so we really focus on identifying, the hard skills of, can they cut hair well? We have to check that box first, but also the softer skills. Can they build relationships with others? Do they enjoy doing it? And when we do that, when we hire well, we tend to find that they deliver, our steps of service, which essentially is our IP. And that's what keeps clients coming back.
Yeah, that's awesome. I love it. And so you also have this you wear so many different hats. You've got the franchisee and corporate side down, but then you also have marketing mixed with operations. So I'd love to hear a little bit more about the operations side. What initiatives do you have going on either with, technology and your systems or different initiatives related to the operations side of things?
Yeah, I mean, our franchisees, obviously, I wear a lot of hats. Our franchisees wear a lot of hats as well. So I think part of the role of the franchisor is, how do we make their lives and their jobs easier? Technology is a great way to do that. So there's some things I'm going to be a little bit vague, because some things we're working on aren't in market yet, but we're looking at, again, how do we, amplify the experience that our consumers have, but also how do we personalize and customize the experience that's given.
Mm.
So that's really, as we look into next year, where we want to further differentiate ourselves. One of the nice things about our category is, there are other franchise brands out there, but most of who the individual shop competes against is your mom and pop barbershops. And those are
Mhm.
owned by barbers who, they may be great at their craft. They don't necessarily know a lot about marketing. And so that's an area that there's just, frankly, endless opportunities to differentiate and beat the competition.
Yeah, I love that. And so what's working for you guys right now on the consumer marketing side? What does kind of your local playbook look like?
Yeah, so I think it's a couple things. I think on the creative side, it's, how do you take a brand and a business that is so experiential, and how do you convey that outside of the shop? So that's always going to be the
Mhm.
challenge, right? We can't, you know, send a haircut in via direct mail or anything like that. So it's making sure that the creative is on point regardless of what we're doing. We tend to lean into digital. I think we can better tell our story, typically digital, than, some traditional media. So that's one thing we're leaning into. And then what we have found for us is really building a strong acumen across the corporate staff, across digital media, but specifically with Google. We know in our category that, most people, if they move to a new area or they just want to mix it up, they're pulling up their phone and they're searching barbershop near me. So it's as simple as,
Mhm.
how do we make sure that we're putting our messaging, getting it top of page? And we find that the ROI on our paid search typically is outperforming most other marketing tactics.
Yeah, that near me. Everyone wants the stuff that's in their backyard
Yep.
quickly. I could also see I mean, the idea of stepping in to get a haircut and you get beer and to play some pinball, I could see video working really well for you guys to be able to convey some of that. But it's interesting in that that's one of those tactics where you end up overlaying it once you have that solid foundation of the near me searches, and making sure that you're ranking high, buttoned up. Like that's like the layups that's easy. And then beyond that, seems like video could be a really cool medium for you guys.
It's an easier way to tell the story, right? So we absolutely, every year or so, we try to refresh. We do nice long shoots, and we get enough footage where we say, hey, we can repurpose this a million ways. And yeah, that's absolutely the best way to articulate the experience, because you're actually showing the experience. Static imagery, you have to be a little bit more creative to really show our points of difference.
Yeah. Another hat you can wear, model, to get the video creative done since you're also a customer. And I know one thing you
I
also
am.
mentioned.
I just yesterday.
Oh, there we go. Perfect. I know one thing you mentioned when we were chatting earlier too was about your own local store opening and having a really strong presence there. So curious what tactics are in your arsenal for really strong local store openings.
Yeah, I mean, it's just getting as many eyeballs on your brand as possible. Especially for me, I was the first diesel in the Jacksonville, Florida DMA, right? So we have some markets, especially in Texas, were founded, a lot of markets now we're opening shop number 4, 5, 6, which makes it a little bit easier because you have some brand awareness. So we always encourage franchisees to start their marketing, long before they're actually opening the doors, but to really focus on the awareness side, right? So I mentioned just before, paid search works incredibly well. Well, someone searching barbershop near me isn't looking for a barbershop experience 3 months down the road. They're looking for something typically same day or next day. So, we still do a lot of digital. So that's, social. We start trying to build our social communities, a couple months prior to opening. We still find that Google is a great tool. It's just leveraging some of their other ad types. So you mentioned video. I think YouTube is a great channel to start telling your story prior to opening. Also, some of their display ads, you're just going to get significantly greater reach than with paid search. That's another tactic we tend to use. And then, it's funny, our founder, because when he opened the original Diesels, social media was still in its infancy. The digital landscape was a bit different. So he actually built 6 original corporate locations, highly successful, mainly focused on kind of the traditional blocking and tackling marketing, going out, meeting others in the community, getting partnering with your local chamber of commerce, meeting business owners around, where you're going to put your location. And so we try, even though the marketing landscape has changed, we try to make sure our franchisees understand that people don't just want to purchase and support businesses. They want to support the people behind them. And you can't replace the personal one-on-one interaction. Obviously, that's not the most scalable. I think as a business with Diesel matures, shop matures, you're not going out trying to source customers by the one. But before you open, that every single client and customer matters. So, I spend weeks and weeks and weeks going to every business in the area, every apartment complex, condo, giving out, swag left and right. And frankly, that's what our founder did and built a successful business. So we take that, kind of historical knowledge that of what led to success. And then we also layer on the more modern tools, which, tend to be on the digital side of marketing.
Yeah, which at the end of the day, whether it's traditional or digital, you're just trying to reach a local person with a really personalized message. I think to your point earlier about that's an initiative for you guys to be able to personalize and customize that experience.
Well,
It's
and it's
just
the way
simply the
that
way in which you do it.
absolutely, and it's a way to amplify, right? You get, obviously we want as many customers as possible, but really we want brand advocates. So you convert the customer and you don't just have them like the experience, you get them to love the experience. That's how you're less reliant on the owner or the manager getting out there and sourcing new customers. You actually get your customers working for you. And then the one other tactic I failed to mention, PR has worked incredibly well too. Getting the media coverage is another great way to amplify the message. And that's something we're leaning into.
Yeah. And so what's your hot take on TikTok? Is like the big one of like, should you be on TikTok? Should you not? What do you do with TikTok? What's your 2 cents on it?
So I knew you were going to ask me about this. We have not fully leaned into TikTok yet. So I think there are a couple of reasons. One, for the longest time, they didn't really have local advertising options. I believe that recently changed, but in the past, I mean, if we had 500 locations, 1,000 locations would have made a lot more sense. But if you can't get down to the local level, you're wasting a lot of dollars on eyeballs that frankly are going to be hundreds, if not thousands of miles away from the closest diesel. So that was one area that kind of made us hit pause and say, hey, we're not there yet. The other thing is, and this is going to change, right? The users skew a little bit younger, and we try to have diesel as a concept and brand that will resonate across a wide range. But we're not, I mean, we get some kids, some teenagers. We tend to target more, higher affluent consumers, which typically are going to be slightly older, and those that really, there's a nostalgic element to the arcade games, our level of customer service. So we're just not, the center of the bullseye for us are not teenagers. Of course, we have them as customers, but that's not center of the bullseye. But with that said, TikTok users are starting to age, right? It's not the newest technology anymore. So I do anticipate over time us leveraging that channel the same way, we leverage Facebook and Instagram.
Yeah, nice. And yeah, I know they definitely don't have as sophisticated targeting as, Google or Meta. They can do city level targeting, like basic local level targeting, but it's definitely not to the granular level of
And
some
that's
of the platforms.
And so that's one of the issues, right? In the world of men's hair, it's hyper localized. But yeah, I mean, people want to go within a few miles of where they live or where they work. So doing total DMA marketing, not to say we never do it. We just always make sure our franchisees understand there's going to be some waste there, right? You're getting your message on some eyeballs that just are like, hey, I'm not driving 45 minutes to get a haircut. Now we do have customers that literally drive across state lines to come see us, but we're not banking on that to build a successful business. We're obviously trying to dominate that, 3 to 5 mile radius around each shop.
Yeah. Yeah, I love that. So just a few more questions for you. Are there any other trends that you think marketers need to be on top of today?
I mean, I'm going to repeat myself a bit. I think the experiential piece, right? It's always been important, but I still think, strongly believe coming out of the pandemic, that people are just seeking experiences and they're seeking interactions. And that's something, I mean, the interaction piece goes even beyond the pandemic, right? I think as people are reliant more on technology and less face to face interaction, that's only been exasperated by the pandemic. Now it's all right, where are the experiences in life where you actually get that human to human interaction? For us, we're really fortunate. That's what we do, right? Like Amazon, knock on wood, Amazon's not going to find a way, to start selling haircuts and, men's grooming services. So for us, that's a trend that, we're absolutely leaning into. And then, the next thing is going to be the personalization, right? I think people don't want to feel like just a number. They don't want to feel like every other customer. They're unique and they want to be treated as such. So again, I'll be a little bit elusive, but as we look at, how we're going to leverage technology moving forward, how we can use it to better personalize for each individual consumer is huge. And I'll, give you one idea that we're flushing through, right? So we have a ton of repeat business. We're typically more appointment based, which is another impact of coming out of the pandemic where, consumer behavior changed where people now are more okay with making the appointments. So we offer, I mentioned craft beer or even non-alcoholic beverages. We do music streaming that people can actually go online and request songs. So we want to find a way, how do we actually match that with the data that we have on each client where we know when they're walking in the shop, we get pinged, you know, Joe Smith is walking in, get the IPA out, get Led Zeppelin keyed up on the music streaming so that when he comes in, he's like, holy geez, like this place is literally customizing the experience for me as I'm walking through the door. So that's just kind of one idea that we've been kicking around and are definitely going to look to find a way to do moving forward.
That is so cool. I mean, that is like just so cool to hear that that type of, experience could be made. And then I can imagine just really easily that becomes referral marketing. I mean, then you're just like blown away and you're telling all your friends, or maybe even like scheduling an appointment with your buddy to come in and get your hair done
Well,
as well. That's pretty cool.
and that's the other piece as well is how do we really leverage again the fans that we have and the referrals and simplifying the referral process is something that we've been having a lot of discussions around as well.
Yeah, and I think oftentimes as you try to educate franchisees of why you do something or, why reviews matter online and word of mouth, like they kind of get it, but you're like, if you looked at the hard numbers, it's like this will cost or cut your cost to acquire a customer in half if you just have a referral engine going. Like it will
Now
be
you're going to
less
get
of a
me going.
stress.
I couldn't agree more. And even as the COO of the business, and I mentioned that, the for my shop, it's become semi-absentee to absentee, but I still always have my phone on me. And when I get that alert that a Google review is coming, that's one of the areas I'm not willing to pass off to a manager. I
Mm.
respond to every single review that comes in because I see the value and I know the cascading impact that it has on customer acquisition and referrals. So I still, even, in the role I'm in, I'm responding to every review for my shop myself.
Yeah, that's awesome. All right, just a few more questions. One being, if there was one thing, one kind of problem or, challenge, opportunity, however you want to say it, that you could unstick right now and just solve that would be a huge win, what would it be?
Yeah. So, I mean, this is going to be probably more on the operation side than marketing. We've done a really good job of understanding why staff turns over, why recruiting can be challenging, right? And what we've learned is, they want to be seen, they want to be noticed, they want to be heard, and they want to feel valued. And I think new entrepreneurs, and this isn't just with Diesel, right? This is going to be, any business. People are so anxious to make it a success that they focus on the wrong things. They focus out of the gate strictly on KPIs and business results. When the reality is, especially in the service business, it is 100% all about the people. Now, as an operations guy, I'm obsessed with KPIs. I'm obsessed with numbers. I'm a P&L ninja. Like, I love all of that stuff. But I've learned that if you focus on people first, it creates a business that you can pull those other levers to make successful. And so, I think we know what needs to be unstuck, but the challenge is, all right, you've got a lot of different personalities in any franchise system. You got a lot
Mm,
of type A people. You've got a lot of people with, more traditional white collar backgrounds. It's coaching them on how to attract the right talent, how to build the right culture, which then creates a stickier talent base. And again, we know what needs to be done. It's just convincing everyone else to do it. I think we have some franchisees that are immensely successful in listening and following that. And we have others that frankly are going to have to learn the hard way because, right now, and the pendulum's always going to swing back, but this labor market, people have options. And that means if you're not treating people
definitely.
incredibly well, they will go somewhere else. Our franchisees that get that have really high retention rates. And, the correlation between high retention and business success is incredibly high.
Yeah. Yeah, that's good. So I'm curious though, from the operations side, what are your favorite KPIs? Like, what are the big ones that I should probably ask this in the lens of marketing. What are the ones that marketing should be caring about wearing a COO hat?
Yeah, I mean, so on the marketing side, right, what your customer acquisition cost is incredibly important, right? You've got to make sure you're not spending more than and then also lifetime value. So it's those two that determine, all right, how much am I willing to spend to acquire a customer? And you can't really know that answer unless you know roughly what the lifetime value of the customer is. We're always looking at customer acquisition and retention. So, right, customer acquisition, if we have an issue there, it's, hey, marketing, we have a problem. Can we fix it? If it's customer retention, obviously marketing can play a role, but I tend to believe that falls more in operations, where if the in store experience is what it needs to be, that's going to lead to higher customer retention. So, on the operations side, I mentioned that I'm a bit of a P&L hawk. To me, labor is our highest variable cost. And once
Mm.
you remove occupancy, frankly, it's the only cost of significance that you can really control. And so we look at our labor productivity. It's essentially our service dollars per labor hour. We look at that incredibly close. And that is the one metric that really, once you have a business, obviously you need customers, right? You have to have a business of certain scale. Once you get to that scale, measuring the labor productivity, at least for our business, is really going to determine what kind of margins you can get out of the business.
Yeah, nice. I love a good geek out on a P&L every once in a while. Is there any other advice you have for marketers then? Having a little bit of both background in operations and marketing?
I think a lot of marketers look at how do we get people in the door? And then it's all relying on, well, it's operations to actually get people coming back. I think marketing and operations, they need to be hand in hand and make sure that whatever you're saying or the imagery you're using, however what's the hook that's pulling people in? We need to make sure on the operation side that you're delivering. Because if there's a disconnect there, you're going to see great customer acquisition and you're going to see awful customer retention. So we always try to make sure, I mean, we're not a huge organization. So we have plenty of calls of the entire team. And we're always talking about that in-store experience as well as what we're doing out of store.
Yeah, I love that. All right, last question for you, which is what does being a great marketing leader mean to you?
I think being a great marketing leader means you have to be okay with making some mistakes, right? If not, you're just going to do the same old tactics over and over and over. There's always going to be an emerging trend. There's going to be a new platform that a lot of businesses say, yep, this seems great. And they're going to throw a bunch of money into it and the platform's going to fail, right? Going to date myself. I'm sure there were businesses that were like, hey, all marketing dollars need to go into my space. Probably didn't work out so well. You don't want to put all your eggs in that shiny new object basket. But I think carving out some of your marketing dollars to try new things, to do test and learns, I think is essential to growing and really pushing the envelope in the world of marketing.
I love that. And that one hits home for me as I currently am trying to figure out how to keep that test machine going and not getting just stuck in what's working, always making that time to push the needle and do more. Otherwise, you're not going to keep advancing. So I love that.
Great.
Awesome. Well, thank you so much for joining me today. It was great having you on the multi-location marketing leader. It sounds like you guys have some awesome initiatives queued up for 2023 that I'll have to check back in on and hear how they're going. So thanks for joining.
Definitely, dear. I enjoyed the conversation. Let's do it again sometime.
Sounds good.